Fernando Alonso will be making his comeback for 2021 with the Alpine team, the evolution of the Renault team with which he got his 2 world titles and tons of race wins, both in good and in bad times. And with 18 years of racing in F1 under his belt, there are bound to be decisions that now in retrospective we can see didn't make much sense, but at the time they could have been the best decisions of his life if they panned out. Today, we're gonna take a look at his single-seater career from the beginning, with the good, the bad, the ugly, and the plain unlucky, because yes, luck has definitely played a part here. So sit back and enjoy Fernando Alonso's career recap. Fernando Alonso's first foray into single-seater racing came in the hands of the Open Movistar by Nissan Championship in 1999, where he competed as a part of the Adrian Campos motorsport team, where of the 15 races contested, he won 6, had 8 podiums and 9 pole positions, after which he was granted a test in a Minardi Formula 1 car for the very first time, as well as a reserve and test driver contract for the 2000 season. After that, he would move on to the Astromega Formula 3000 team for the following year, one of the F1 feeder series at the time similar to Formula 3, where he would fare worse, finishing 4th with a single win and 2 podiums out of the 9 races in his rookie season. But it didn't matter much, because in December 2000, after a certain Flavio Briatore became Alonso's manager, Minardi allowed Alonso to drive for Benetton in a test session, therefore accumulate enough driving time to be able to get a super license. As a part of a loan agreement with Benetton, the team which he had signed a 5-year contract with, Alonso would race for Minardi in a full driver capacity in 2001. Briatore sent him to Minardi to provide him with experience in Formula 1 racing. Minardi was a backmarker team, so expectations were low for the season, but looking into the results, whenever the 2 drivers would finish the race, which wasn't often, Alonso would end up on top compared to his more experienced teammates. All eyes were on him, and the media did what it does best, started speculating where he'd go, be it Sauber, Jaguar, Prost, or even Arrows. But to everyone's surprise, Alonso turned down countless opportunities to race, choosing to focus instead on a development role behind the scenes at Benetton, now renamed Renault, where he'd get acquainted with the team and its structure, as well as rack up mileage on the promising racing team to help drivers Button and Fisichella deliver better results. For 2003, Fernando had been linked to countless teams for a full-time racing seat, but the one sticking out the most was the Renault team, where he had been tipped to replace underperforming Jenson Button, who had been slightly outperforming his teammate during the previous season, but due to him not getting along nicely with the boss, he got booted. Alonso was now a Renault F1 driver. By his second event, he'd get his maiden pole position at Malaysia, as well as becoming the youngest ever pole sitter, and got his first win at Hungary, beating Bruce's McLaren record at Spa, being the youngest driver to ever win a Grand Prix, which was also Renault's first since 1983. Renault were pumping money and innovation into their F1 project, and it was starting to pay off. By the end of the season, he had finished 6th in the standings with 55 points and outperformed his more experienced teammate Jarno Trulli, who finished with 33. 2004 was a consistent season. With an all-powerful Ferrari, the legendary F2004, Renault just couldn't compete. Alonso would go on to score 4 podiums and always be there or thereabouts with an average finishing position of 4.2. You can see that he was consistently a threat, taking full advantage of whatever carnage or misfortune happened ahead. He would once again outperform his teammate who, although having gotten a win that season, had an average finishing position of 6.4. And a bit after the midway point of the season, his results just nosedived. And for an undisclosed reason, with 3 races to go, he was dropped altogether from the team, but luckily he found a seat at Toyota, and was replaced with world champion Jacques Villeneuve for the remainder of the season, who Alonso would handily outperform as well. For 2005, his teammate would be Giancarlo Fisichella, and the Renault R25 was an absolute beast. This year they had innovated once more, introducing the tuned mass damper, a device usually mounted in structures to reduce the amplitude of mechanical vibration. It's usually seen in tall skyscrapers, road cars and others, but that year Renault had found a way to adapt it into the nose cone, therefore reducing vibrations massively and improving aerodynamic flow and efficiency. Tires were another big factor. In 2005, the tire regulations were a big help to Michelin, who had a different tire structure to rivals Bridgestone, one that favored the new no tire changes during the race rule, which put McLaren and Renault ahead of Ferrari, who was supplied by Michelin's rivals. The Renault V10 engine had certain strength too, It was particularly strong at slow speeds, with its low revving nature, and a bit more reliable, which also applied nicely to the one engine every 2 races rule. What a contrast to today, huh? And was mounted a bit more far back than the other teams, improving traction of the line, which favored Alonso's understeery driving style. All of these factors added to the fact that they had the best launch control system and arguably one of, if not the best driver in Fernando. They looked to be favorites ever since pre-season. Alonso took 7 victories, 6 pole positions and 15 podium out of the 18, or 19 depending on who you ask, races contested that year. And the reliability of his car and consistent results compared to championship rivals Kimi Raikkonen with McLaren, who had 3 times the amount of DNFs, allowed him to claim his first drivers' title with 2 rounds to go at the Brazilian Grand Prix, where he also took the title for youngest ever world champion. With 2 cylinders shaved off the engine block, the new Renault R26 spotted a V8 engine that was also pretty damn competitive, and with their car being an evolution of the previous year dominating car, Alonso finished 2006 either first or second on every race up until the halfway point, where the FIA banned the tuned mass damper in order to slow the Renaults down. Added to the Ferraris ramping up their pace, it looked to be a closer battle that second half. But with such a solid start to the season, Fernando would go on to score the single point he needed to take his second title at the final race of the season in Brazil, and become the youngest ever 2-time world champion. Let's go back a bit. In October 2005, Alonso and his manager met up with Ron Dennis over a future move to McLaren, which later progressed to a secret deal with a 3-year contract starting 2007, once the partnership with Renault expired. Due to scheduling conflicts, Briatore would end up finding out at the same time as the press. The deal was officially announced to the public on December 19, 2005. His stay at McLaren got off to a rocky start, with them initially stating their concern that Alonso's aggressive driving style would not suit their car, because they believed that Renault had built themselves around him. It was not the bow of confidence that he needed, but nevertheless, his goal for the 2007 season was to get the championship, and he believed the MP422 was the car for the job. He would be partnered by rookie and young promise Lewis Hamilton that season, who would make his debut in F1 alongside the 2-time world champion. Fernando had the logical thought of, my teammate is a rookie, and I'm the 2-time world champion, I'm gonna be the number 1 driver. He had his sights on his old rival Raikkonen, who had just moved to Ferrari, but Hamilton pulled the rug right from under his feet. Being almost as competitive as him, it wasn't good, and his relationship with both Hamilton and Dennis soured quickly. We can understand his point of view of, I've got this English team with a English driver and they are favoring him. Raikkonen, Hamilton, Massa and himself would trade wins throughout the season, and after every race it still wasn't clear who was the fastest driver or who had the edge over the others, but a controversy was also brewing under the scene, with the Spygate scandal, which I don't want to go into this video, but there's a great analysis by Cranky Yankee which I think hits the nail in the head that you can watch after this video. Added to the air of distrust that enveloped the team, made it a toxic atmosphere and every man for himself kind of philosophy. The team was fractured and therefore uninhabitable. The championship would go on to the wire, with the last race where Raikkonen would edge out both McLarens to win with 110 points to Hamilton and Alonso's 109. All in all, it was a chaotic, convoluted and extremely toxic year that concluded in an early termination of the 3-year contract, a deal which would be mutual only if Alonso signed for 2008 with a team that wouldn't threaten to be championship contenders the following year. The cars were laid out then, it was either Red Bull, Toyota or Renault, all with a 2-year contract. He decided to go with his guts and went back home. He was back for Renault for 2008. The 2008 season got off to a more motivated start. He was in a much better environment and felt much better overall. The car though was another thing entirely. The R28 form was far from the 2006 one, and it wouldn't even see the podium until the German Grand Prix with Nelson Piquet Jr. that took full advantage of the safety car with his one-stop strategy. Their first win came at the controversial Singapore Grand Prix, where Briatore had instructed Piquet to crash at a certain lap and corner, causing his teammate to take the win. Incident that was investigated the next year, leading to no charges being given to Alonso due to his lack of partaking. But Briatore and race engineer Simmons would be forced to step down, with the former being banned indefinitely from all FIA-related activities. The season would rack up another win at the next event, the Japanese Grand Prix, and Fernando would finish 5th in the standings, 7 positions ahead of Piquet. Given that Renault had finished lower than 3rd in the standings, Alonso was a free agent for 2009 and was given a couple opportunities for that season. Honda had interest in the Spaniard but was later omitted as an option due to the team being sold to Braun. Red Bull also had an offer, a 2-year deal, encompassing the 2009 and 2010 season. But as the team had finished 7th the previous year, it was deemed too risky of a move to take, given that they wouldn't budge for a single-year deal. Renault's promise to be back en route to win the championship that year, on the other hand, looked more promising, so he struck a 1-year deal with Briatore. He'd stay at Renault for 1 more season. The season started off with a complete shocker. The new regulations allowed for a loophole that few teams had taken and Renault had missed, that of the double-decker diffuser. The lack of pace was noticeable and the looks definitely didn't help. With an average finishing position of 8.2, Fernando would finish 9th in the championship with a single podium and a handful of points. For 2010, the so-called worst-kept secret in F1 was revealed. Fernando would drive for the Scuderia for 2010 on. With a 3-year contract struck between him and Ferrari team boss Stefano Domenicali, he started wearing red, replacing Kimi Raikkonen, their last champion to date, in what could have been one of the best partnerships in F1 history. Alright, given that this one has gone long enough, I'm gonna split this video into 2 parts, with the next one coming up in the next week. It will encompass the whole of the Ferrari career, the comeback to McLaren, and what actually happened on 2019, what he got up to, and how he's coming back. As always, like the video if you liked it, and subscribe so you don't miss part 2.